What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. Listen, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, and then turn on your notifications. The Washington Post did an interesting story about inflation and its tie to homelessness. So I'd like to share this article with you and then give you a reaction to it based off of my own understanding of the incoming recession, inflation, and then everything else that's going on in the industry today. Um, the thing about it before I really dive into this is my passion project coming up. And the majority of the volunteer work that I've done early in my life was centered around homelessness. And interestingly enough, homelessness, there is no face to it. Most people think that homelessness is based off of some drug addict or some derelict or somebody that just got out of jail and all of this other type of stuff. And so when they think about homelessness, uh, naturally here in the United States, a lot of people think of somebody that's panhandling and things like that. When in reality, the majority of people that are homeless that I've worked with, from a volunteering perspective, it all came from a space where people were one paycheck away or a family were one medical emergency away from losing everything. And I did a report recently where I spoke about how the majority of people, millennials specifically, that make over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. This is a fact. This is the truth. Most people are not in a position of power or strength. And now, somebody will say, well, Anton, that means that they mismanage their money. Two things can be true at the same time because a lot of times, often people don't understand the language of money, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Make sure you subscribe to the Patreon. We're doing some phenomenal things in there. I want to deep dive into this article really quickly before we start talking about it and give you my thoughts on the face of homelessness when considering exactly what it is that we're looking at in this economy, right? In this particular article that the Washington Post, I believe. Yep, the Washington Post broke down, says sheriffs arrived at 6 a.m. in early June to tell Joe Hosan English that she already knew, that she was being evicted. She lost her job as a project manager. This is not a fly by night job. This is not something that, I just woke up and I lost my little bowl job or whatever like that. This is a job that uh, for some people or most people would be considered a career, right? The average household income in the United States of America, all the way across the board, is roughly $65 to $67,000 a year, right? Then falling behind on rent at $6 gas and higher costs for food and utilities depleted her monthly budget. By the time she lost her home 2 months later, she owed $9,160 in rent and late fees, and her bank account was nearing zero. She was in a space where she couldn't catch up, right? Once the dominoes start to fall and this thing is built on a house of cards, eventually you got to pay the piper. She received $1,300 in housing assistance from the county, but that didn't go very far in an area where the average rent has ballooned to nearly $2,800 a month. This is inflation. For those of you that are not familiar with inflation, let me break it down to you. There's several contributing factors that go into inflation, right? Essentially, it's the value of your dollar going away. The price of a movie ticket today is different than the price of a movie ticket in 1980, right? Housing today is different than housing yesterday. The average transaction price for a car is different than the average transaction price for a car today. Everything goes up. Costs, materials, shipping, everything continues to go up. When y'all sit there and y'all protest for $15 an hour instead of adding value into the economy and then being paid accordingly, that raises. Housing raises, right? Everything goes up, and inflation is at a 41-year high and climbing because we don't know how to manage the economy, thus our money, effectively. And so when money is cheap, everybody goes out and they finance everything and they don't really understand how money works. But then eventually the piper has to come. You got to pay the piper. Balloon of nearly $2,800 a month after a week in a hotel. English and her partner, interesting, sent their three children to live with relatives while they slept in their Hyundai SUV and showered at the gym. This is more common than you think, especially in warmer weather areas such as the Miamis, the Los Angeles, even the southern states, the Texases. This is more common than you would believe. People have gym memberships, not necessarily so that they can work out. They got gym memberships so they can get some running water and they can take a hot shower. And they living out of their car. More people than ever are going van life, not necessarily just because they want to be nomads, digital nomads. They're doing it because they don't have a choice. They can't afford to live in a house, home, apartment and pay the rent or pay their mortgage anymore. Let's continue. I made good money. Last year I made almost $100,000. And I can't believe this happened to me. But with prices the way that they are, it can literally happen to anybody. Woman making $100,000 a year is homeless. Think about that for a second. Let's really put that in perspective. A woman making $100,000 a year cannot afford to feed themselves, live in a place, have kids. They got to live in their car, send their kids to the relatives, and take a shower at the gym. And now I'm looking like an oracle, ain't I? When I broke down how making $100,000 a year is not entirely what you think it is, y'all sat there and y'all said Anton is nuts. That you can't raise a family of four on $100,000 today and do it successfully. And when I say successfully, I'm talking about making sure that your retirement is funded. I'm talking about making sure that they don't have to go to college and have to get a bunch of debt and student loans. I'm talking about you being able to do what you want to do, take the kids on vacation, make sure that food, get your gas in your car and all of this other type of stuff. And y'all sat there and y'all looked at me and y'all said, oh, okay, Anton, you crazy. I'm telling you, I do this. I coach a lot of people. I pour into a lot of people. I know what I'm talking about. It's rough out here for people. It is very, very rough. Let's continue. Let's get into it. Y'all wanted to deep dive into this. Let's get into it. Rising housing costs combined with persistent inflation for basic necessities such as gas and food have left more Americans newly homeless and millions more fearing they'll lose their homes. One thing that I never did, right? And I've never had a tenant move out of any of my properties. I've never raised the rent. Now, call me the type of person that likes to look out for other people. But I also understand, right? Two things can be true at the same time. I also understand that that makes for a better relationship and more stability, which ensures that I don't have turnover month over month because I'm not trying to pressure people, right? Me controlling my costs allows me to be able to pass those savings on to my tenants, which then allows for me to become much more successful because I have stability, I have long-term renters. I'd rather have the long-term relationship and people that don't tear up the property actually improve the property. They're more willing to do so. Listen, I'm not going to give you all of the game, right? Make sure you join the Patreon. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat because we go over this. I'm actually flying to Tampa today to secure the building that I'm building with my Patreon members. I'm putting up all of the money. They doing the legwork. I'm teaching them and guiding them on how to build a brick and mortar. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. And if you need to kick it with me for a personal call, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. We doing great things, right? We're the bag chasers. We're not being affected in a negative way by inflation. We're actually benefiting from it because there's going to be winners and losers, and the middle class is being hollowed out. Real talk. Shelters across the country are reporting a sudden increase in numbers of people looking for help as they struggle to cover basics. Inflation has reached 40-year highs. Just as many vulnerable families are readjusting to life without a boost from the government stimulus or protections to keep them from being evicted. A rise in homelessness is the latest example of a recovery further separating the haves and the have-nots. How long have I been talking about this? Soaring housing prices have allowed existing homeowners to see their wealth balloon. Meanwhile, a growing number of Americans simply finding a place to spend the night is becoming more expensive and out of reach. We're in a very precarious moment where the cost of living is going up so quickly through the price of gas, food, and rent. There are more people that can't afford a place to live anymore, says Meredith Grief, an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins University whose work focuses on homelessness and inequality. Everywhere you turn, prices are rising, but wages aren't keeping up. How long are you going to continue to be in this state where you're waiting for something to happen to you instead of controlling your fate? How long are you going to not be educated on what's going on in the economy and how you're affected as a result of it? People that are making $100,000 a year are being priced out. And the average household, not individual, household income is less than $70,000 a year. Well, you can take these short-term temporary solutions and say, well, move away from Sacramento. It's a bunch of little stupid things that you can do. But in reality, there's going to be winners and losers if we just really want to get down to the brass tacks of things. And there's going to be more pain and suffering, and then people that benefit from that pain and suffering because they understand how to move financially and understand exactly how money works and what the language of money is. I'm telling you, it's going to get worse before it get better. We ain't even got to worry for the government to officially declare you in a recession. Some of y'all already in a recession and you've been there, and it's just been snowballing and waiting to hit you like a bag of bricks for a long time. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit a like for the YouTube algorithm. Turn on your notification bell. And again, a link to the Patreon is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. It's sad, but you don't have to be one of these type of people. Roll with a group of people that's going in the direction that you're going in. I'd like to get y'all thoughts. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Send me emails, all of that type of stuff. Because the bag chasers, I refuse to let us be in that same group of people. All right? I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.